step by step. That makes me think of the song Day by Day. Okay, and no, I'm gonna resist singing that. Okay, it's not on topic here. Okay, what we have to give to be healed. This morning I'm going to share some ideas, of course, on the topic of healing, what it is, how we experience it, and I will also share with you some of my own thoughts about healing and what it is. I was visiting with a friend of mine about, almost 2 weeks ago now, and she was sharing with me that she has to have surgery on one of her eyes. There's something wrong with the muscle in back of one of her eyes, and she is seeing a strange kind of double vision. It's kind of like, as she described it, one reality is here, and then there's another one on top of it. I guess I'd never heard of that before, but the doctor assures her that the surgery will fix everything. And she was lamenting the fact that in her life she's had so many different kinds of surgery. And she expressed gratitude for the fact that, that God has provided doctors who have knowledge and have made these corrections in her body, but that this was just another one to get through again. And I thought of a joke. I didn't share it with her, but it had to do with someone else who was having surgery. This man, the doctor told him that he needed cataract surgery on both eyes. And he consented to the surgery, though he was very, very worried about it, concerned about it. He was afraid of it. And the doctor tried his best to calm him down and to let him know everything's okay. It's kind of a common surgery now. But that didn't help him at all. Anyway, he went ahead. They put him under, and the surgery was successful, but the man almost had a cardiac arrest when he woke up out of the anesthesia, because the doctor came to him and said, "Well, okay now you have just one eye." And of course, the doctor was meaning, you have just one eye left that we've got to do surgery on, okay? But when he heard that, that's not how he heard that. You just have one eye. Yeah, see, I'm thinking that my friend probably wouldn't have laughed at that one either, okay? But I began thinking about this whole thing about healing, and I've been fortunate. I've never really I did have my tonsils out, and my twin sister did too. I remember waking up in the hospital. Mom and Dad were there, and Katrina was in the next bed over. I remember being able to eat all the Jell-O and ice cream that we wanted, that is, until we got home, okay? Then the rules applied. But I did have an experience back in 1986, May 28th, 1986. My twin sister lives in Pennsylvania with her husband. They have 2 daughters who are now, one is an attorney, the other is like a school psychologist, and they're in Virginia and Washington, D.C. But Katrina was pregnant with their first child. And at the time, in '86, I had been pastoring the Unity Church in Salina for a little over a year by then. And one morning, I got up to go to the church office, and I don't know, something hit me. Something hit me. My head was killing me, and my torso I was hurting. It just hit just out of the blue, okay? It frightened me because I didn't know what was going on, okay? And it didn't last long, thank God. And I was normal again, but I was concerned because I didn't know what it was, that it might happen again. And I had this concern. Needless to say, I didn't go into the office, okay? And I was at home wondering what this was. I felt like I felt like what I imagined a Mack truck hitting me would feel like. And I was concerned about that until Louis, my brother-in-law, called and said that he and Katrina were the proud parents of Lindsay Michelle Marikas. And I inquired about the time she was born, and I realized that's what that was. Okay. And from that moment on, I decided this twin thing had gone far enough, okay? I have no children and never had that experience, okay? So when I talked with her and congratulating her and Lewis, I said, we had to get something straight here. I'm not going to do this again if you decide to increase your family. And lo and behold, 3 years later, when my youngest niece, Lauren Nicole, was born, it didn't happen. But that made me think about people who suffer from ailments, from diseases, from physical things. And yes, it did make me grateful that I'm not having to experience that at this time in my life. But I began thinking about the other forms of healing that I've had to experience in my life. Psychological healing, okay? Healing from worry and concern and anxiety. No one is immune to the need for healing, because what really is healing? And mostly when we think of healing, we think about the physical body. But there are all kinds of healings on all kinds of levels of our being. And to be honest with you, well, someone said, well, no healing is ever permanent, because we all make a transition from this level of life. So all healing is temporary in that sense. But Charles Fillmore describes healing as a return to purity, a return to integrity, a return to the original relationship that we have with God. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking that, is wholeness the same thing as healing? And initially I thought that it was, but I realized in preparing this message this morning that they are not the same. Wholeness is something we always have. It is this connection that we always have with the source of life, with the source of wisdom, the source of love, the source of joy. We always have that. So on that spiritual level, we are always whole and complete. But healing is on another level. And we often need this process in order to experience, once again, the wholeness that we already have and that we always have. So healing began to be, in my mind, this process that we often need in order to remind us and reconnect us to the wholeness that we always have within us. And it is something that is generated from within rather than from without. Doctors and the things that we can do in the outer help in this triggering, but it always is this connecting again in awareness to the wholeness that we already have, that we were born with. Charles and Myrtle Fillmore began to be aware that healing is this inside job. And Myrtle Fillmore wrote a book about her experience with healing. And because basically her healing is the thing that started the whole unity movement going. She shares in her book, Healing Letters, that she began to experience an awareness, an insight. And actually, she says that Charles, at that point, really wasn't that interested in what she was doing and what was going on with her. He continued in his business. But she began to be aware of the idea that we are children of God. She began to think about, what does that really mean? You know, we grow up, we go to Sunday school classes where we hear perhaps you're a child of God, and we don't think very much about what that means, because we think of God that is somewhere off somewhere, a divine parent looking over us. And we come into unity or new thought, and we have a whole other understanding of what it means to be a child of God, because this divine parent isn't off somewhere. This divinity is within us. The divine parent is within us. And so child of God, Myrtle realized, was that she didn't inherit from her physical father, although she, at the time, she was basically dying from tuberculosis. And the doctor, I think, had given her I think it's 4 months to live, and she began to get really serious about her understanding of what healing was and this connection to God. She thought, God is eternal life. That life is in me. That life in me is eternal. And when she grew up, she had a lot of ailments, and she began to feel that she inherited a lot of those sicknesses from her father, who was very sick. And what she realized here is that she inherited from her divine parent, not her human parent. And she began looking at the things that she inherited from her divine parent, God, that presence within: life, vitality, enthusiasm, all of the qualities that motivate us and move us out to learn and to grow spiritually in this world. She inherited strength in her body and intelligence. She said, if God is everywhere present, and God is, she said, then what God is everywhere. Life and wisdom and intelligence. Hey, that means it's in every cell of my body. That means that I can communicate with the intelligence, the wisdom, the understanding, the life, the strength, the power that's in the cells of my body. And she began to use words of power, words of affirmation. And she tells the story that she went to the cells in her body. She went to the organs in her body, in mind, in prayer, in contemplation, and she spoke to them. She apologized for perhaps mistreating them, eating the wrong foods and not getting the physical exercise that her body needed, and all of these other things. And she encouraged them to let the light that was in them, the energy that was in them, express through her. So imagine this. And now, these days, there are a lot of scientific studies and things like that that talk about the power of words and ideas and feelings over the body. But in those days, I think this information was fairly radical. And the idea that, like talking to a plant and seeing it blossom because you're sending it energy, that you can do that with the cells in your own body, and see them blossom with renewal and energy, and see them whole and well. And Myrtle did succeed in healing herself in 2 years. She said that when things began to happen for her and people were seeing that her health was improving, they wanted to know what she was doing, what she was using. And Charles Filmer her husband began to take an interest in what was working for her. And he began to try affirmations and words of power and energy and truth and speak those to his body. He suffered from a leg that was shortened, and I understand that his limb did actually grow several inches. He wasn't completely healed, though. And so this whole thing started the unity movement. People came, she said, I shared with them what I was doing, what I was working with, and some of them got healed, and then they shared with other people. And before you know it, people wanted this information written down, so she wrote her letters, and she took communication and correspondence with people, sharing with them what was working in her life. And that brings us to here. That brings me to here, okay? I didn't grow up in unity, knowing what this was, but in January 6, 1980, I walked into a unity church in Montclair, New Jersey, about a half hour from Newark, where I lived, and walked in and thought, they're speaking my language. This is home. No hell and fire and damnation, okay? No worm of the dust kind of thing here. But I heard messages like, you are the child of God. You are made in the image and likeness of God. And they really meant it. It wasn't just something said. It was a challenge to live as if you believe that you are a child of God. And the whole healing thing with unity This has been a powerful, the silent unity ministry. This has been a very, very important part of unity and unity teachings. This idea that we are filled with this life and with the opportunity to be renewed simply by making a connection in consciousness with this presence. We don't have to search out there somewhere and reach out for God. We reach in and experience that presence that always is within us. I wanted to share something about healing also, and in particular for unity people in New Thought, this idea that we can be healed, this puts a burden on so many of us because we think, I know that God can heal me. I know that I can be healed. Well, why am I not healed? When I was first in unity, I thought, I should heal my eyes, okay? And then I realized, do I want to take the time and the energy to heal my eyes when I enjoy wearing glasses? To be honest with you, they cover up the bags on your eyes, okay? You put them in the right place, and this lower rim covers that all up, okay? So I never worked on healing my eyes, okay? But that doesn't mean that someone would not want to do that and can do that, because that possibility is available. The kingdom of heaven is the kingdom of all possibilities. We choose, we decide, okay? And we can accept that healing whenever we feel that we want that healing. And everyone wants to feel joy and love in life. And healing is a part of that as well. There is a guy online, his name is Randy Alcorn. And he's not a unity minister, but he's a minister from a different faith. And he came down with a case of diabetes and became insulin dependent. And he said the experience that he had was that his members of his congregation were always coming up and saying, I want to pray for you. I want to pray for your healing. And he said, I was very open to that. And I prayed myself. I prayed 1,000 times that I would be healed and not be dependent on insulin anymore. And he said, one day I realized that maybe God is healing me in another way. And I truly believe that healing always occurs because, again, we have that wholeness within us. But Myrtle, as Myrtle points out, sometimes, we're not in sync mentally. And even with our feelings and our attitudes, sometimes we forget and we get caught up in what's going on out there in the world and the messages that we get from the world. Okay? The advertisements on television that say, if you drink Coke, you're going to have a vitality and an energy, okay? Or you put a certain deodorant on and you can attract your mate for life. We get these messages all the time. This is the human condition, okay? And Myrtle says, we have to learn to walk past these things. And then she began talking about healing and that when you receive a diagnosis from the doctor, an assumption, which says that whatever you're dealing with, whatever problem or physical condition, is something unchangeable, something permanent. She said, what you need to do, you need to walk by that. Walk by it. She said, treat it as if you heard a rumor or some untruth on the street as you were walking. You didn't take it up, you just walked on by. Oh, made me think of Dionne Warwick. Walk on by. No, sorry. My brain is that way. Okay. But walk on by that. You don't have to pick that up. You don't have to hold on to that, okay? You can release that, okay? Because she says, the truth is that what we experience, she says, anything that is not Christ-based is something that we can change. So everything out here in the world of appearances is maybe a fact of our experience. And we are not to deny the experience that we are having in this relative reality. But what we are to let go of and release is the thought that whatever we're challenged with can keep God's good from showing up in our life experience. That is what we deny. And we are to affirm this idea that we inherit good from our Father. And Jesus said this too. He said, it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And we understand in unity that the kingdom is the realm of all possibility. All possibility is available to you and to me. There are three things that we have to give, I believe, in order to realize the wholeness that we already have. Number one, we have to give up. Number two, we have to give in. And number three, we have to give to. Giving up, there will always be things that we need to release or give up. Unity calls this a denial process. We say no to some things, okay, when we know they're not good for us, not healthy for us, or we try to say no to some things. Sometimes we have to work at it. Two, giving in. There will be things that we need to give into, surrender to, receive. And number three, give to. There are things that we need to give ourselves to. We need to apply ourselves to the work that we need to do to experience this wholeness. And to have this wholeness take shape and form in our outer experience, whether that's our body, whether it's our finances, whether that's our relationships, whatever situation that challenges us can experience or feel, can display this wholeness. Working with Myrtle Fillmore's Healing Letters, she has 3 steps that I think fit very well with my 3 giving up. The first thing we read in this 9th chapter of her book called No Incurable Disease is that she says we have to give up this idea or this notion that that dis-ease, disharmony, and incurable conditions are real, lasting, and permanent. We have to give them up. Again, anything that we produce that does not measure up to the Christ pattern of perfection in us can be changed. She writes that we are to refuse to hold on to these thoughts, and instead, we are to brush them away, kind of like cobwebs, Charles Fillmore calls them, cobwebs that may have gotten on our arm. Brush them away. And I like that description, okay? Please note again that this does not mean that we make believe or we ignore the fact that we're having a negative experience or a painful experience or a health challenge. But rather it means that we take the notion or the idea, we take the fear and the worry that that challenge can keep God's good from us, and that we kick out to the curb. Denial is like repentance. It's a mental process of letting go and rethinking something. Giving in. Myrtle writes about our healing on the levels of mind and consciousness in step 1. But here, she's talking about our feeling nature. She shares what kinds of thoughts and attitudes we need to affirm or make strong in our consciousness. On page 63, she writes, rejoice. Rejoice in knowing that you are the offspring of God and that the life and substance of God fills your body. In fact, you are created out of the life and substance of God. And this is always whole and complete. We are invited to accept that it's God's plan for us and the meaning of our lives to give expression to this wholeness that's within. And in her book, she has a section on prayer because she said it's prayer that actually allows us to connect with that inner wholeness. And using, as she says, positive words of affirmation, visualization, we begin to connect with that wholeness and to see it. In fact, we help usher it from the spiritual level in us to this outer level where we touch and connect with our world. Giving to. Myrtle shares that we all have work to do. She says that we should take time to take a look at what our habits are. What are we habitually thinking? What are we doing with our physical body? To make sure that what we are doing is in alignment with the wholeness that we want to experience. And I'm thinking right now of that cheeseburger, the number 3 at McDonald's. Okay? That's really, really good. Okay? Or the fish sandwich, number 5. No, it was number 9. But, those things are not particularly healthy for me. And I've shared in the past with you guys that I was working on my elliptical machine. In the past, I've had rebounder. And a while back, I bought some containers of Slim Fast. And they have that commercial and they say, give us a week. Give us a week. And we'll take that fat away, okay? I'm still looking in the cabinet trying to decide what week to give it. Okay. I'm pretty sure it's not going to work with it in the cabinet unless I work with it. But that's just an illustration here of some of the things that are possible for me to do as I work on reducing some of this muffin top. I think there's a new name for it. A friend of mine called it, what did she say? It's a life raft. I said, what? And what she meant was one of those inner tubes that you put around, you're floating in the water, okay? I said, I don't want to affirm any such thing, okay? It's bad enough thinking that this is the leftover cheeseburger I had the other day. So we are to be careful with our words, okay? With our thoughts, okay? Because she says thoughts are formative, okay? So we want to speak positively about the changes that we seek to experience in our lives. Okay? So I'm thinking on the way home, I'm going to have a salad. I buy salad stuff every week from the grocery store, and I have to throw it away every week. But I need to make some changes. And reading through Myrtle's book on healing has inspired me anew to take the challenge, to be more healthy. So I invite you to take the challenge with me if you're so inclined, okay? You are welcome to come up to me on Sunday and say, how's it going? Are you working out on that rebounder? Are you working on that elliptic? And when's the last time you had a number 3? Okay, you are invited to work with me on this, to see me whole and well and slimmer, and I will do the same for you. Giving to. Giving to is that phase where we don't only do that for ourselves. We're not in this world just for us. Even if you may think so, you're in the world for others as well, okay? No person is alone. Jesus said we're 2 or more gathered together. Okay? We are in community. What we do, what we think, our attitudes, how we respond to life, this has an effect on others in our world. And as we choose to work on ourselves and to experience more of the wholeness that's in us and work with the ways that we can bring it out through us, we inspire others to do the same. So I hope, I'm not sure how long it will take me, but I hope to inspire you when I have my new body. But we are to be a support, an inspiration, an encouragement to the others in our world. And this is part of the healing experience also, because we are becoming channels of this light and love and wisdom. God bless you. We're going to move into our meditation experience.